How are you feeling? It's a question we get asked a lot and probably ask of others quite often as well. And generally the answer is quite superficial. I'm fine, I'm good, how are you? Busy. There's a strange paradox between how keen we are to ask that question and how reluctant we are to really give a thoughtful, accurate answer to the question. And the barista at our local coffee shop probably doesn't want the unedited version of that answer anyway. In this video, I'll talk about emotional intelligence, what it is and what it isn't. I'll use a very simple but powerful model to help us to improve our emotional skills. Hi, I'm Carol Mould. For more tips and advice on how to live your best life and be a wholehearted project manager, please subscribe to my channel and hit the bell to be notified when I release a new video every Tuesday. So let's first of all define emotional intelligence. In 1990, psychologists Peter Salovey and John Mayer introduced the first formal theory of emotional intelligence to the scientific literature. And this is their definition. It is the ability to monitor one's own and others' feelings and emotions, to discriminate amongst them, and to use this information to guide one's thinking and actions. But is it really a thing? There's no single validated psychometric factor for emotional intelligence as there is for general intelligence. And many argue that emotional intelligence is therefore not an actual construct, but rather a collection of different things that go by other names. Despite this criticism, the concept of emotional intelligence, though sometimes referred to as emotional quotient or EQ, has gained wide acceptance. In recent years, some employers have even incorporated emotional intelligence tests into their application and interview processes on the theory that someone high in emotional intelligence would make a better leader or co-worker. And while some studies have found a link between emotional intelligence and job performance, many others have shown no correlation. And I'd recommend using EQ assessments with caution and only as one data point of several when making hiring decisions. A lot of the ideas in this video come from psychologist Marc Brackett. He's the founder of the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence, and I'll put a link to his book in the description below so that you can read further if you'd like to. Marc Brackett highlights 5 areas where emotions matter most: attention, decision-making, social relations, health, and creativity. So let's have a look at each of these in turn. First of all, attention. Where we direct our attention, what we remember, and what we learn are all influenced by our emotional state. And emotional intelligence is not a new idea. You can see Plato said all learning has an emotional base. Second area where it's really important is in decision-making. You can see the quote at the top of the screen by Antonio Damasio. Affect or feelings is not just necessary for wisdom, it's also irrevocably woven into the fabric of every decision. So the way that we make our decisions is influenced by our emotions. If we make decisions when we're in the grip of any strong emotion, such as anger or sadness, but also positive emotions such as elation or joy, we perceive the world differently, and the choices that we make at that moment are influenced for better or for worse. I can remember working with a colleague and we were grading papers, and he had just become a grandfather, and all the papers he graded during that week got much higher marks than those graded the week before. So perhaps that was this in action. The third area where emotions are really important are in social relations or how we get on with other people. And a great saying to go with this one is from Theodore Roosevelt: no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. If we take our own feelings plus our interpretation of other people's feelings, these create signals whether to approach, avoid, affiliate, reward, or punish others. It reminds me of an old story called the Jack story. So the story goes that a salesman is in the middle of farmland driving home on a country road from his last sales call. It's late at night and he's tired and hungry, and he gets a flat tire. Grumbling, he gets out of the car to get the spare tire and the jack from the trunk, and he realizes that he doesn't have a jack. So he decides to look for a house so he can borrow their jack. He sees the lights of a farmhouse in the distance and thinks, farmers are always friendly and helpful. I'll go and knock on their door. As he starts out, he puts his foot right into a deep puddle. Now his foot's cold and wet. He thinks, I really hope that farmer wants to help me. He falls down in the field and now has mud on his pants, and he's cold, tired, dirty, and getting really angry. He thinks, I bet that farmer won't want to help me. He probably doesn't even have a job, but he keeps going because he doesn't have any other options. He thinks the farmer's probably sleeping. I'm going to wake him and he'll be rude and won't want to help me. Well, I'll show him. So the salesman storms up to the house, pounds on the front door. After a few minutes, the farmer comes to the door in his pajamas and the salesman screams, "You can keep your stupid jack," and he stomps off. So this is really a good illustration of how our own mood affects our behavior and makes us interpret other people's behaviors, whether it's accurate or not. The fourth area where emotions are really important and impactful is our health. Positive and negative emotions both cause physiological reactions that affect our physical and mental well-being. One particular study showed that people with negative emotions were 3 times more likely to get ill after exposure to a virus and also to have more severe symptoms than those with more positive emotions. And so this is really critical at the moment as we are all going through a pandemic. And then the fifth area where emotions are really important is in creativity, effectiveness, and performance. So creativity is about acting in novel and original ways. But on its own, that is not enough. That's just imagination. Creativity needs to be followed by concrete action to translate into effectiveness and performance. In order to achieve big goals, get good grades, and thrive in our collaborations at work, we have to use our emotions as though they were tools, which of course they are, or they can be. So let's have a look at a model that can help us to harness our emotions positively and improve our emotional skills. This is called the RULER acronym. Let's have a look at what this stands for. So the acronym for RULER starts with R for recognize, understand, label, express, and regulate. Let's have a look at these in turn. So first of all, we need to recognize the emotion that we are experiencing. In order to help us recognize our emotions, Marc Brackett came up with the concept of a mood meter. He's also developed an app to help you to track your moods, and I'll put a link to that in the description below as well. What he suggests is we look on these 2 axes. First of all, we ask ourselves the question, how much energy does the emotion that I'm experiencing currently have? And the second question on the horizontal axis is, how pleasant is the emotion that I'm experiencing? So if we look at examples, if we look in the high pleasant, high energy quadrant, the yellow quadrant, those would be emotions like thrilled, joyful, happy. They're both pleasant and have energy associated with them. Still with high energy, but the unpleasant emotions would be things like being furious, angry, or annoyed. Moving to the quadrant where both energy and pleasantness are low, those would be feelings or emotions such as being sad, miserable, apathetic. And in the green quadrant, these would be pleasant but low energy emotions such as feeling calm, carefree, being easygoing. So once you've recognized the emotion, and this is a very useful tool to help us to do that, the next step is to try and understand where it's coming from. The things that we can ask ourselves is, what just happened? What was I doing before I felt this emotion? What has happened before with the person that I'm dealing with that might be connected to the way I'm currently feeling? And really just try and get to the root of what's led up to this emotion. Then we can try and label or name the emotion. And there's a saying here, if you can name it, you can tame it. Once we've labeled the emotion, the next thing is to express. But we need to know how and when to express our emotions. We need to take into account the setting, the people that we're with, and the general context. So for example, if your boss has just made you angry, it may not be the best time to blurt out just exactly how angry you're feeling, but maybe just take a moment and pause and reflect and express elsewhere. And then the fifth step, the other R, is to regulate. Regulating our emotions is a process by which we influence which emotions we have, when we have them, and how we experience and express these emotions. Now, the first 2 points here in this slide are to pause and ask ourselves, what would our best selves do? These are things that we can do in the moment while we are experiencing these emotions. The other points that I've put up on the slide are things that we can do in general to equip us and build our resilience and our skills in regulating our emotions. This would be to do things we love, like walk out in nature, spend time with people we love. Music can have different effects on our moods. We can also practice mindfulness. We can reframe situations. So for example, if we need to go and give a presentation at a conference, we might feel nervous, but we could reframe that and say, I'm actually really excited to give this presentation, rather than saying, I'm really nervous. Journaling is also very useful. We can journal and look back over time and see how we are progressing with our emotional skills. And our physical health can also have a big impact on our mental health. So making sure that we're getting correct exercise, nutrition, and hydration. I hope this video has given you some food for thought on what emotional intelligence is all about and how we can develop our emotional skills. Please comment below if you find the ruler model helpful, and also share with us any other tips that you might have so that we can all build our emotional skills even more. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. Please subscribe to my channel and hit the bell to be notified when I post a new video every Tuesday. Look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye.